Hey, what we're going to talk about in this video really quick is I'm going to give an illustration of how economies of scale actually comes about. You should know what it is by now. I'm going to show you how it actually happens. That was actually one of your activities, to try and figure it out. You might have. Here we go. So let's take a look at these two firms. We have two firms of the exact same size. One is firm A, the larger one, in terms of production scale. The other one, firm B, is a smaller company with fewer customers, but everything else they face is identical. So in other words, they make the same stuff, they have the same size factory, they have exactly the same machines, of exactly the same manufacturer, like they're all the same, and well, they're both the same in every way except their scale of production, that is the quantity of their production. So what we're going to look at next is variable costs, which by now you should know are things that change with how much you produce. So things like if you're making bread, how much flour you're going to use will change depending on how much bread you make. Labor as well, but things like property taxes on an identically sized factory, or the lights in the factory, or the security guard that watches the factory at night, none of that changes based on how much you make, really, right? So those are fixed costs. So we're going to say our variable costs are $10 per unit for both companies, right? Because they face exactly the same situation. Because what we're going to show is that scale of production alone is changing the cost of production per unit, which I'll clarify at the end as well, right? So their fixed costs, we're going to say, are $1 million each. Both firms are identical. So the only thing we have to do now is calculate our costs. So our total variable costs of production are going to be, and if you're not familiar for spreadsheets, it's a quick review, you start all formulas with an equal sign. So we're going to go equals, and we're going to click on 100,000 units, so we're going to multiply that by $10 per unit, right? That's $1 million. So our total variable cost of production for firm A is $1 million. Well, guess what? For firm B, it's going to be 10,000 units times $10. So the total cost, of course, is less for variable costs because they're making less stuff. But we've already determined that the fixed costs are $1 million for both companies. And you can already start to understand that if your total fixed costs are the same and you're producing less, you're going to have to charge a lot more for those 10,000 units in firm B to get your money back, right? To cover your expenses and to make the same profit. Well, you're right. Guess what? Total costs of production for firm A are $2 million. And total production costs for firm B are $1,100,000. You say, but Bolton, you just said that greater scale of production reduces your, it's like economies, it reduces your cost. No. Doesn't reduce total cost. If you make more, your total cost is going to be higher, right? That's just logical. What it does do, though, is it changes the cost per unit. So if you made, once again, formulas, $2 million of total production costs, and you made that, you incurred that cost by producing 100,000 units of output, your cost per unit is $20. Likewise for firm B, if you had $1.1 million of total cost to produce just 10,000 units of output, your cost per unit is $110. Remember, these firms are identical, making the same identical product in every way except the scale of their production. What does this mean? Well, first of all, let's talk about how it happened. How it happened? What's the only thing different? Well, the scale of production. Everything else changes. Oh, look, what else doesn't change? The fixed cost, right? And so here's your note. Economies of scale comes about because you are able to spread your fixed costs over more units of production, reducing the per unit fixed cost. The result? Well, take a look. Firm A can sell at a profit its products for less than it costs firm B to make them, right? Firm A could sell this for $100 each. It costs $20 to make. They could sell it for $100. Firm B can't even sell it for $100. They'll go out of business. And so economies of scale like this situation, are the reasons companies have been merging for decades. They're the reasons companies have gone global. They're the reasons when you have free trade, small scale production disappears. We've had lots of factory jobs lost in the last 30 years in Canada, right? Because they all merged somewhere else, right, to produce for the entire North American market. So on the other side, because that's able to happen, you have much cheaper products than you otherwise would have, because you have massive scales of production out there in manufacturing, right? And among a whole bunch of other reasons. But essentially, that's how economies of scale works.